It's the Cavaliers Basketball Club Podcast.
It's basketball time to kill.
Love picks up Curry.
Kyrie Irving from downtown. Up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James.
It's over. The 52-year drought is over. The Cavaliers have won the NBA championship.
Cleveland, this is for you.
Sexton works on Irving. He knocks it down.
Heat check time.
Allen to Garland, 1 second left for midcourt.
Strongest goal. Oh, what a rejection by Mobley.
And he throws the hammer down.
The shoot-around.
As of this recording, the Cavaliers are still in the 6th seed and have had a tough stretch, dropping 3 of their last 4, losing to Miami, Chicago, and Philly.
With less than 15 games left in the season, each win and loss has a major impact on the seeding of the team. The Cavs did get some good injury news with LeVert coming back against the Clippers, and news breaking that Allen will not require surgery on his broken middle finger. We're hoping they can find another gear to get some much-needed wins.
The Cavs had a hard-fought loss to the Sixers this week. At one point they were down 17 points and came back to take the lead in the fourth. The comeback was led by their bench play as they outscored Philly 13-41. Are you surprised by how lopsided the scoring was?
I was surprised by how well the bench played for sure, because the starters were getting slammed at the beginning of the game, and in the past few games, the Cavs haven't been able to rely on their bench. Luckily, with LeVert back, he was able to be a catalyst coming off the bench. I mean, he scored 15 points and also had 7 assists. The other thing that I loved about having LeVert, and why you and I were excited about the initial trade, LeVert knows how to penetrate a defense and break down that defense so the offense can move and flow and function. When LeVert was out with his injury, it was really Darius who was breaking down the other team's defense with his dribbling. So having LeVert coming off the bench, and it seems, I don't know if you noticed this, he and Kevin Love were really communicating a lot, either during possessions or during dead balls. LeVert and Kevin Love were talking to each other all the time. It was a joy to see that, because as much as Kevin Love has just been a revelation this year, here's another new guy that he's having to play with. And Kevin in previous seasons, it's hard to tell kind of like what his emotional fortitude will be in a certain game. And Love showed up for the occasion as well and was constantly letting LeVert know when he was open, when to, dish the ball to, the guy in the corner. So I loved seeing that as well. Additionally, Brandon Goodwin was able to get some good play in as well. In the previous game against the 76ers, Goodwin looked a little sloppy, not as confident. This is another reason why having LeVert on this team is helping. Brandon Goodwin having LeVert with him as well gives everybody confidence. You can just see that they understand, here's one guy we can get the ball to, and in the last second, he can get a shot either off the dribble or kind of drive to the basket and draw a foul. So I was pleased by the bench, not surprised in the sense of them playing as well as they did, but surprised overall just because it hasn't been that consistent the previous games.
I was happy that they put up a fight. They tried to stay with the 76ers. It's concerning for me because it's been now consistently for almost a month, our defense is gone. We just don't stop teams from scoring 110, 120 points on us, and therefore our offensive struggles compound very quickly. We can't have one quarter, let alone 2 quarters, where we score under 20 points and hope to stay with a team like this. So I'm a little more down about the overall outcome because we really needed to hang with this team, especially on our home court, and win this game. And looking at the stats, it was a winnable game outside of those awful quarters that we played. So the third quarter was certainly, the rallying cry that they needed, but they consistently go 2 for 12 to start a game and work out of the hole the rest of the way. And they can do that against the Indiana Pacers,
Right.
No offense to them. They can barely do that against a team like that. But they cannot hope to do that against a team like the Sixers or the Nets or any of these teams that are probably going to be contending for the finals this year and have a prayer to win the game. And looking at the stats, it is sad that we lost this one because, again, it's a home game. Statistically, we were neck and neck with them. They shot 51%, we shot 48%. They made 3 more threes than us. We matched them on rebounds. We matched them on assists almost. Turnovers were about the same. Points in the paint were about the same. Everything was about the same. So we had a lot of calls not really go our way. Stop the clock, but we didn't go to the line. And we had a couple of, I hate to put this out there, but we had another game of consistent bad calls from the refs. And I don't know how we can overcome poor shooting, riddled with injuries, and then the refs calling everything against us. I don't know how we can overcome that when we play against any team in the league, let alone one of the best teams in the league.
The calls are something that every Cleveland fan is familiar with. NBA Twitter, Cavs Twitter was joking about how really the reason why the 76ers are the most dangerous team in the East is because of the calls that they get. It's not because they're leaps and bounds above and beyond, the other upper echelon Eastern Conference teams. It's because when there's 2.5 minutes left, they have 2 dudes who will get a call no matter what. The frustrating thing for me, and we touched on this in the last episode, is they weren't calling these plays. They weren't making these calls earlier in the season. And this is an extremely young Cavaliers team. It is so impressive that the Cavs are the 6th seed with this age. And the fact of the matter is, when you're calling a season like it's supposed, you're supposed to be consistent. And especially with young players, when they're going to be faster and hungrier and, be more committed on defense, but all of a sudden calls are going against them, I just find that extra frustrating because these guys are working their butts off. And like what you said, they're riddled with injuries. So they're part of your concern. I agree with you, but part of that concern too is you and I can tell that some of it's just chemistry because it's guys on the floor who haven't been on the floor together with each other. Dylan Windler got some minutes in this game, which was great to see, but the last time Windler played, I believe, was the Reagan administration. So, no, and that's not a slight against him. It's just how it's happened, how the season's broken down.
The referees, I think, I've always understood as an NBA basketball fan, I think it's always been this unspoken rule that if you're a veteran in the league, you're going to get more calls than if you're new to the league. I can't remember a team that was so young and so talented and so on the rise as the Cavs, and yet we can't get calls. We don't get any respect for anybody on our team. Allen is practically a vet now for how long he's been in the league.
Yeah.
Garland, this is his 3rd season. Okoro, that's not his rookie year. I can understand even last year not getting the calls.
Mm-hmm.
But being an up-and-coming team, being a team that was knocking on the door for getting the 1st seed just a month ago,
mm-hmm.
I'm shocked that we can't even get these calls at home.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing if you don't get them on the road, fine. Hometown calls. We don't get anything remotely similar or in any recognition of that. The idea that when we play at home, we're going to have things go favorably our way. As a Cavs fan, that's never been the case. Even when we had nothing but vets on our team and LeBron been in the league for 10 plus years, we still didn't get the calls. So, and you're seeing the frustration come out more and more from the players and the coaches. But against the 76ers especially, I saw JB really about lose it. One of the major plays that went against us was this jump ball right at the end that they didn't call for us. They called a foul against us. And they even had to review the play, and it was clearly a jump ball. And they still called it a foul. And afterwards, you could even see JB walk up to Doc Rivers, And they kind of did the, coach exchange thing at the end of congratulations. But I think Rivers on his mouth was like saying, it's bad. And JB going, yeah, F him. And then shaking his head in disgust as he walked away. They're definitely talking about the refs. So it's not just JB standing there being frustrated with the calls. Even the team that won, their coach is coming over and going, yeah, this is getting bad. The calls are consistently getting worse week after week. And what is the NBA doing to address that? Other than lean on the reviews that ultimately it's like they're looking at something else. Why at home do we see the play more clearly than they do on the court? Especially with their instant replay team in New York and all that stuff. I just don't get it.
Yeah, and I think too they need to get rid of this whole the coaches challenge and the fact that they only get one per game. They should at least make it 1.5. And I don't think that they should be penalized a timeout because the review only takes 30 seconds, or it should take only a couple minutes. And previously, before that whole situation, they were doing whole reviews that the NBA front offices were trying to pull, which took much longer. That wasn't even the craziest ending of a game. Cavs fans remember the Charlotte game where they just magically were given 4 frickin' points for no reason. If you're a professional organization where you have to legislate a game, those refs should have been, I doubt they were suspended. They should have been suspended for the rest of the season, especially the dude that called the phantom BS stuff for Terry Rozier. Like, that was such an appalling call. I thought I was watching like an amateur sport, because that's what it is.
The refs have to be more consistent with their calls. These guys are busting their butts out there, and if they don't know what is going to be a general foul, what's a hard foul, what's a shooting foul, when those lines are blurred, then that's when people start to hard foul or do things that are over the top, because they don't. The frustration of the game being lopsided up and down with how it's being called then turns into the situation where guys are just flailing around trying to find the line.
In the last couple of games, Isaac Okoro is showing improvement on offense. He had 20 points against the Clippers and 17 against Philly, all of this while he was guarding the opponent's best player. How are you feeling about his output?
I feel great about Okoro. I think he's a terrific player. He's only 21 years old. He was selected last year in the draft, so it's only his second season. He was put in a position to play outside of his natural position, to play the 3, and he excelled at that, and now he's in his natural position at the 2. I'm very happy with what he's done this season. I would say the only thing I've been critical of him is that at times when the team is looking for someone to step up, I would like him to do it more. I think there's been a few games recently that he's proven that he can do that. Against the Clippers, obviously, he had a 20-point game, which is just phenomenal. Just judging by what he did with the Clippers game and what he did with the 76ers the last 2 times he's played them, he's clearly starting to get more comfortable with what the team not only wants him to do, but what his skill set is allowing him to try. That all of that hard work that he's putting in the offseason that we heard about, I think you can see it. You can see it in his jump shot. You can see it in his 3-point shot and his ball handling. He's definitely improved from last year to this year. The impressive thing about him in general is that last year he came into the league kind of NBA ready. So the leap between freshman and sophomore year isn't as great because he didn't need to take a huge leap. He was already good enough to play in this league. Shooting-wise, that was the thing that everybody was wondering about, especially his outside shot coming in from college. You and I have never really been worried about that because there's plenty of shooters on this team. We don't really need Okoro to be that at this time. So it's icing on the cake on the nights that he does give you that kind of offensive production. What I really like is that on the games that he has these high-scoring nights, he's very efficient from the field. So against the 76ers back on March 4th, he was 7 of 8 from the field. Clippers 4 of 6, and then most recently against the 76ers, again, 5 for 9. That's a terrific shooting percentage when having a high total of points at the end of the game. It's typically you're thinking about a guy like Westbrook or even a guy like Curry. These guys take 25, 30 shots. And that's why, they score a lot of points, but they're taking a lot of shots. So I'm very impressed that he can have that kind of output with such low shooting. And if he can find 4 or 5 more shots a night, especially on nights with all these injuries and issues we're having, he could consistently be a 15 to 20 point a night guy if he can stay that accurate from the field.
I'm impressed by the timing as well. We're kind of getting into crunch time with the season, and we've needed people to show up, and the fact that Okoro came into these 2 games that are more important games, and he's showing up offensively while he's still against the Sixers guarding James Harden, who he held to 5 of 12 from the field against Harden. So he's still showing up defensively as well. What I'm also seeing from him is he's attacking the basket, and while he's attacking the basket, he's also looking for his teammates. So yes, he is getting more buckets. He's getting more assists. He had 5 assists in the Clippers game. He's not the main guy, but he's that initiator, that second initiator that's really helpful. So I'm happy to see his comfort level. That's all I can really ask for the rest of the season. I don't think I can expect him to score 17 to 20 a night every night. It'd be great if it was closer to 15 to 18 a night. At the same time, what I want to see for sure is him attacking the basket and at least adding that layer of being, getting a second or third pass in there that leads to a bucket so that the team can kind of be less stagnant, not waiting for Darius or Karras to kind of do everything. And some of that too is his teammates have to trust him with that. And that's also paying dividends. I think the team the whole season it's not like they've been weary of Isaac. It's just more he's taking a shot from the corner, or he's just trying to drive to the basket and only try to get a bucket for him. He's not seeing the floor as well. I don't think he was seeing the floor as well earlier in the season. Now he's kind of coming along with everybody and getting some good chemistry.
Also looking at his career stats from last year to this year. So he's played 13 less games so far, but he averaged 3 more minutes a game last year, and yet he's shooting 5% better from the field this season and 3% better from the three-point line. So even though he's playing less minutes, he's shooting more consistently, more efficiently from the field, and his stats are increasing even though he's getting less time out on the court.
The Cavs missed their first 10 three-point attempts against the Sixers. He was the first one to make a 3-point attempt.
Yeah, and he was 3 for 5 in the game too, which is great for him.
We've kind of bludgeoned it already, but he looked so comfortable in both the Clippers and the Sixers game as far as his shooting stroke as well. He looked confident. That's all we've been asking him, is just to be confident.
The final seconds.
Against the Clippers, Brandon Goodwin had a clutch chase down block. Given the fact that he's only 6 feet tall, was this the most impressive block of the season?
That might have been the most impressive chase down block this season, if I can recall. But I don't even know if it was the most impressive block in the game, because Mobley had a fantastic block against Zubats, the Clippers center, in overtime that just completely changed the tenor of overtime. I thought that block was possibly even better. How did you feel about the Goodwin block?
It was very impressive for a player of his size. Obviously, you don't see something like that except for maybe in NBA 2K. It's very rare that a player can get position when they're that short to make a block like that. But good for him. He had his head on a swivel defensively, and he went for the play. It didn't matter to him about his size. And he had an ESPN highlight moment. I don't know if he actually made ESPN. Probably not. Your mention of Mobley's block, it was a pretty disgusting block. I almost I have to say that it was better than Goodwin simply because Mobley is a twig of a man and Zubats looks like he weighs, 3 times what Mobley weighs. And Mobley blocked him and put him on his butt. I mean, just put him down on the ground. And that was impressive. I mean, I was sitting there going, wow, what will happen when Mobley has size one day? Like he's going to be shattering the backboard. But, we'll see.
As we all know, Sexton has been out for most of the season. Are Cavaliers fans forgetting how good Colin is at basketball?
I'm not going to give Cleveland fans the benefit of the doubt. I don't think they ever knew he was good at basketball. Because I don't think the Cleveland fan base was paying any attention to the Cavaliers until this season. And I think it's a shame because for the most part, I hear a lot of disrespect locally for the guy. And he did nothing but earn our respect. The guy was only ever asked to make nothing but sacrifices to his game. And he came onto a team that he was seen as the guy for, you're the reason why LeBron left. And, he was hated by his teammates for his rookie season and not really given the support that he needed. But the guy came to work, became the hardest worker there, the most dedicated worker there, and did everything the Cavs ever asked him to do. And the fan base is so ignorant and stupid to the reality of what he was asked to do that now they just see Garland as good. So, I guess Garland is better than Sexton. It really makes me upset.
I completely agree with the idea that Cavs fans or Cleveland fans, I would say Cleveland fans haven't been paying attention to the Cavs probably actually since LeBron won a championship, to be honest. And Colin Sexton is a player that every franchise dreams of having. He was the 8th pick overall, was not considered a high-level prospect in any capacity, and has proven to be an incredibly consistent and efficient scorer, has improved his game every step of the way. Oh, and he's a team-first guy, which is, especially in the NBA, there are so many players. Just ask LeBron James if he could have some more team-first guys on his team right now. So I agree that people need to give Colin the benefit of the doubt and welcome him back, because I do think the Cavs do have plans to keep him and to make him a bigger part of the offense, because the Cavs need more scoring. Every team can use more scoring. We talked about how there are only so many shots. At the same time, Colin's, like we said, he's an extremely efficient scorer. So even if he gets 15 shots up and he's being very efficient, he'll draw fouls, he'll hit a couple threes. Colin Sexton should be embraced by Cleveland, which their whole deal is grit and grind. That's the epitome of Sexton.
Work hard for everything. Nothing is earned. And Sexton is nothing but that. He embodies that. I got a suggestion for Cleveland Cavs fans. Go look at Sexton's highlight reel and tell me why we would be a better team losing a 25-5 a night guy when we're knocking on the door to being one of the better teams in the East right now when we're injury riddled without him. Bring him back and what, we're not as good? We're not better? Makes no sense.
Moses Brown, a backup center, was signed by the Cavs to a 10-day contract. How should we use him in these next few games while awaiting Allen's return?
One thing that baffles me about Moses Brown is he's bigger than everybody else on the team. He's 7'2", which is insane. I thought we had all the 7-footers on the Cavs. He's also maybe as fast as Lowry, which was extremely impressive to see. I would like him to transition into that backup center role, because I also think that helps Kevin Love out. I think Love is really missing a true rim protector. Ed Davis is a great guy, but he's not a rim protector. He's a great rebounder. Because of Brown's wingspan, he can be more of a defensive presence on the floor. I think it makes Love more comfortable because he can focus more on offense, and then he doesn't have to worry about getting killed on the defensive end with a 7'2" center like Brown behind him.
Well, I agree. I think that he does take some of the pressure off Love. Love is not suited to play the center position. He's barely suited to play the power forward position anymore. I would maybe play him at the 3, and I've talked about that with you in the past, but he's not probably quick enough to play the 3. Love is a guy that comes off the bench and hits some big threes for you when you need him, and he might get a couple rebounds for you as well. But that's about all you can expect of him, I think, moving forward. And any help that he can get underneath so that he doesn't have to worry about it is a benefit for sure. And I wonder, too, some of these quote-unquote veterans that we have that feel like they're old-timers because of how young the rest of our guys are, but Ed Davis, who's 32 years old and is a steely vet on our team, they have him playing at about 7 minutes a night. And I imagine that if they keep Moses Brown, if they decide to do that, if he's a good idea for moving forward into the playoffs, then you could maybe see Davis not play anymore at all. Brown is by no means a good basketball player. He's not a pickup that we should be excited about, but he is on the level of Ed Davis's skill set and abilities. So on the one hand, he's 3 or 4 inches taller and he's a younger player. There's really nothing but upside as far as having Moses Brown take kind of Ed Davis's role of what we've been getting from him all season.
Cedi didn't play against the Clippers and 76ers. Are we concerned?
No, I'm not concerned. I think right now, obviously, because we're injured across the board, we need everybody to be ready to go and next man up and all of that. I kind of wonder if has a nagging injury, if there's something going on. He's been shooting kind of poorly these last 7 or 8 games. That's not uncommon for Cedi, though. He typically has a cold streak that he goes on. Last season, this was about the same time he got benched, and we never really heard why. It could have been for his poor play. This season, he certainly has played much better than last season. He shot 37% from the field last year. This year, he's up to 42%, which is more close to what he averages. It would be nice if he could average that 48% like he did his rookie season. But Cedi is going to Cedi. He's going to be good for 5 to 10 games. He's going to be bad for 5 to 10 games. And with the amount of talent we have on this team and options, even when we're injury riddled, I think we can put him on the bench when the matchups just don't really suit his skills for that night, or he just needs to take a week off because he's just showing fatigue or whatever it is. So I'm not concerned. I think he'll be back soon. We need him. We need everybody.
I'm not concerned. I'm actually proud of JB because if it's not an injury, I think that JB is kind of understanding the moment. Against the Bulls and the Heat, JB went with veterans in Cedi and in Ed Davis. Against the Clippers and the Sixers, he went with Dylan Windler and Moses Brown. JB is trying to figure out who wants to be hungry and fight and get a win. Not saying that any of these guys don't want to get a win. He's trying to optimize his team for the moment, and I think Cedi's leash is just a lot shorter because, as you mentioned, Cedi's going to Cedi. And Windler's not shooting anybody out of the gym, but Windler had multiple rebounds that were able to be second chance baskets for the Cavs, and he's just a little bit more energetic, probably because he hasn't been playing as many minutes in the NBA this season, so he might be a little more fresh. At the same time, I do think it could be that Cedi's back might be bothering him a little bit, especially with just his shooting touch. We know that his touch can just get a little wonky at times, so I agree with you on that point, but I'm also proud of JB to hopefully he's just telling Cedi, just take a minute, take a pause. We need you to actually hit baskets consistently. And if we're putting too much on you right now, I got to trust Dylan to kind of come out there and help us out a little bit more.
Thank you for listening to the Cavaliers Basketball Club podcast. Let's go Cavs!